Hello. So in this video, I'm going to quickly go over how to modify the terrain and also use the terrain tools. So over here is the sort of test terrain that I've been building out over the past couple of months. So over here, I'm going to show you how to use some of the sculpting tools. So first thing you need to do is you need to click the terrain object in the scene, and then um, on the left here you'll have all of these tools. These are the sculpting tools. So these ones are for actually sculpting the terrain. These ones are for textures. So I found that the best one for kind of quickly getting the shape was actually this height one. So the way this works is this will just paint up to this height. So it won't go above this height, whatever this height is. So from my research, the Badlands kind of range like up to 100 meters. And I'll put a low strength, and then the size, I don't know, let's do like 300. For the alpha brush, I tested a range of different ones, but the one that I found worked best for me was this one that I've called Badlands Terrain. Oh, actually, let's make this bigger, 500. Okay, so now I'm just going to click on the terrain, and there we go. We're getting some shapes. Um, every time I click, you can see that the rotation of the brush is changing, and that can be changed here in this jitter amount. So if I put 0 and just keep clicking, it will use the same rotation. Um, yeah, and if you want to erasing is a bit finicky. It's meant to be shift. If you hold shift, it's meant to go down, but was it control? Like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really found this one work. So what I've been doing is I just set the height back to 0, and then that can kind of act as an erase. The other ones are smooth. This will be quite useful as well if you just want to smooth things out. However, the alpha brush comes with like some nice details, so I kind of don't really want to smooth those out. Maybe like the floor around here, smooth this out. And then this one kind of just adds on mass, but very slowly. I mean, I'm not gonna up the strength. There we go. So yeah, this one's not as like useful as the height one I found, but can still be good for small details. I didn't really use slope. Okay, so now on to texturing. So if you look on the bottom bar here, you have a bunch of tabs. If I click on the terrain 3D one, here are all of my textures, and you can add more texture slots. If you want to edit these texture properties, you can click this little pen thing here, and then here you'll get all the settings. By the way, if you're adding more textures for the terrain, something worthy to know is the roughness, no, sorry, the height information which is used to blend between different layers needs to be stored in the albedo's alpha channel, and the roughness for the albedo needs to be stored in the normal map's alpha. So yeah, if your albedo doesn't have an alpha channel representing the height, the blending might not actually work. Like you might not be able to paint. So yeah, just bear that in mind if new textures aren't working. So I'm gonna click paint texture, and then let's click, this is my like path, and there you go. See that I'm painting. Oh yeah, and I'm still using the same brush as well. So obviously these brushes will still work. But then, so obviously this is like, it's painted it very harshly. There's no gradient, which is not great. So what you can actually do is go back to the grass. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Why is this not? Let's figure this out. Is it because Is it because of the brush? Or is it because, oh, maybe because I need to use the spray, sorry. Yeah, the roll-on one will just paint harshly. So now let's try, there we go. Yep, that's a bit more, that's working a bit better. So you can actually see there's this like brown texture coming through. And that is actually the cliff texture. That's this one. And it's the base texture. So for some reason, when I'm painting my path, it's basically removing the grass and blending with the base texture. So if I want to add grass back, I can just click here and it will start to blend that in. So yeah, not the most intuitive thing, but kind of works. There you go. Now it's also worth pointing out some of the debug views. So again, if you have the terrain clicked and you scroll all the way down, you will find some debug views. So open debug views. There's some useful ones in here. So the first one is gray, which is useful if you're actually sculpting, because you can kind of just see the height and the details. And then the other one, if you're painting, is auto shader. Anything that's white is basically an auto shader, and it's going to be auto blended between the cliff and the grass based on the slope. Anywhere I've painted has turned black, meaning that it's not using the auto shader anymore. Now it's just I've overridden that. So yeah, that's a useful one to look at. And there's some other ones here that might be useful. Cool. Turn that off. The last thing I wanted to show was actually my own shader that I made for the terrain. So you can see we've got this like strata, kind of strata details. And that is, the colors here are basically entirely chosen by this gradient texture. So this gradient texture can be swapped out to change the look completely. Let's see. So here I have I had two versions. I had a more stylized version. So if I put that in, you can kind of see how the look has completely changed. But of course you can put whatever colors you want here. So yeah, that is one way to quickly change the look. Then if you scroll down a bit, these strata options are the ones that I've added. So the first one is the scale, and this kind of shows, it represents like the scale of this text, how this texture maps to the height, basically. So if I move this around, you'll kind of quickly see how that works. And then we've got wobble strength. Again, that controls the wobble. Scale, strength, slope threshold. Oh yeah, this is controls how much my texture will blend in with the cliff. And yeah, that's basically it for the terrain. So hopefully this was helpful.